Hello and welcome to the Shootout. Tom Coolican. We are into the final month of the regular season. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Will. Wasn't it just a treat of rugby on Saturday? Beautiful Sydney Bluebird Day, Ladies' Day in full swing at Chatswood Oval. Shot fired across the bow. The benchmark has been set for Eastern Suburbs for their Ladies' Day in a couple of weeks. It's versus Sydney University. That was a great party. I think Dan Parks had too good a time.
Is there such a thing for Parks? I'm not sure, but cool. A huge episode this evening. We have Rugby Australia's CEO and Sydney University legend and premiership winner Phil Waugh joining us. Can't wait to chat to Phil about the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield. We also have Northern Suburbs scrumhalf Michael McDonald joining us ahead of the match of the round in round 15 at North Sydney Oval, the Battle of the North and Baxter-Mortlock Cup. But in round 14, the match of the round was Gordon versus Sydney Uni. How did you see it?
Well, it was a very comprehensive win from Sydney University. Don't underestimate how hard it is to win at Chatswood Oval. It's been a graveyard for many, many good quality sides. It was for Eastern Suburbs last year in round 18. Look, I think Gordon probably fancied themselves going into this game, but unfortunately things didn't go their way. Their line-out didn't function the way it would, it usually should and could and would have. Gordon crashed over early. Pollock, a lovely try. Uni just a little bit too narrow in defence. Uni then responded to a try from Harvey. It was his first of 2 tries that day. He was brilliant. The Queenslander has come down. He spent time this year in Sevens program. He's a winger. He's a back rower. I don't know if he's been the missing link, but he's really got his full pack humming. I think then Albert then responded with a lovely little kick there with Spinks crashing over. Got the bounce of the ball. That was brilliant. Schmood then counterspotted and said, "I'll see you one box kick and I'll raise you another one." That was Harvey's second try. Basson then crashed over as well, I think giving Gordon the lead there. But then it was all University. 26 unanswered points. It was a 40-minute demolition. 4 tries there, 2 from Jocelyn, 1 from Morris, and 1 from Whakafanau. But it all started in the narrow part of the infield. The tight 5 was brilliant. I thought Regan, I thought Lambert, I thought Ofahengaue, Matt Phillip was fantastic. Mangles off door, the whole pack. It was a kind of throwback to the University of old of just rolling up your sleeves and just beating the team into submission. Schmood was able to get out, get some space, got quick ball, gave flat, fast, quick, direct ball to Joe Fowler, who unleashed the backs on the outside. I think Gordon just couldn't keep up with it. And without Tom Horan in the back row, they weren't able to slow the ball down. It just allowed the University side too much front foot, quick ball. But Gordon stayed in the fight. I thought Bacon and Arcus were brilliant. They had a lot of punch. Bacon starting outside centre this week. He'll add a lot. Unfortunately, the Gordon lineout's just not where it needs to be. Saketi Tarval, 4 lineouts inside the 22. Look, Liam Winter did his homework. They took 45% of Hunter's lineout, probably about the same versus Gordon. A lot of critical throws were underthrown. They were taken. Matt Phillip is probably one of the best lineout operators going around, and he just picks that Gordon lineout apart. I think Basson was brilliant. I thought Conifera and Izisi was awesome. I thought he was unlucky at scrum time with a couple of penalties. Gordon, they're probably a lot closer, I suspect, than that scoreline suggested at times. But the fundamentals, you've got to get your breakdown right, get your line out right, and then you've got to manage the referee at scrum time. So back to the drawing board. I know they can beat Gordon. Gordon can beat anyone on their day, but that was far from their best. They'll fancy themselves versus North this week, but they'll have to be better.
Southern District 17, Warringah 47. It was a fun start from Souths with Blaze Barnes just dropping back into the pocket after a couple of minutes of pressure on Warringah and slotting a drop goal that sort of screamed of, stuff you, we're scoring first. And it was almost like making the first bid at a Sydney auction a few years ago before the Boomers or the Crypto Bros just came in over the top. At least you got something done early. So that was fun. And then Souths knocked on after the restart just to hand the ball or control back to Warringah. Rats were a bit clunky. Drysese scored the first. Took them another 20-odd minutes to score again, and Ben Maher sliced through. A tight first half. Souths hung tough and pushed Rats as they do. Couldn't find much joy. And then Warringah took over in the first 10 minutes of the second half. Usual suspects. Maher was great. Reimer prominent at the breakdown. Fuhinio steered them around really well. Drysese more than finding his feet in the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield. and it was 47-3 before 60 minutes was played when Ofahengaue scored his second. South scored the final 2 tries of the match. Great atmosphere at Tynan Motors Park, and the club continues to do great things this year, just not the results they're looking for, but hopefully a building year, and we feel like it is the case for South and starting to look towards next year. But they'll finish strongly over the next month as well, we hope. Coolo East's 50, Manly 24, another win for Eastern Suburbs.
Yeah, look, Manly, as they have done all season, they come out swinging and then just can't sustain it for more than probably 40 or 50 minutes. Lots of really good bright spots, just not sustained 80-minute rugby, which you really need to do with this competition. Hurley crashed over early after a lovely ride more. That was a real bright spot. I thought Chapman Hooker was brilliant. And Caden Neville, the work he was doing, steering the ship. That was 2 of their 3 tries, were from line-out mauls, and it was a real bright spot for this Manly side. East quickly responded. I think Adamson crashed over. And then Hugo Patterson, who came on for St Mary's hooker, Irish product Jack Nelson Murray, went off for 14 minutes. 4 tries for Hugo Patterson, 4 tries off the bench in 65 minutes of rugby. That's pretty impressive. I think 4 tries in the whole season, let alone in 65 minutes of rugby at hooker. Hopefully there's no serious injury to Nelson Murray there. But Chris Poynton crashed over right on halftime. A lovely 30-metre right-to-left pass there from Joe Dillon, who was brilliant. 19 all at halftime, kind of game on. Second half, except for a try in the 54th minute, another lovely ball from Dillon, on the outside there. It was all Eastern Suburbs. Just an absolute demolition, 26 unanswered points from the Beasties. The highlight for me, though, was that 68-minute charge down and regather from the skipper, Josh Boxer. It was sort of those 1% of plays. You can just see, as that play kind of took shape, Boxer just worked hard to get on the outside and just sort of put that extra bit of pressure on. That's what you want from your skipper. It's what you expect from a New Zealand farmer like those, give Ryan Fox a shout out as well. That's exactly what you'd want. Just doing the hard yards, doing the simple things, and just, I guess mastering that kind of process. And pick the ball up and scamper away 40 metres to score. Captain's knock, another one from him. He's been absolutely brilliant. Look, Manly, a season to forget for them, unfortunately. They've had some bright spots, but it's just been too little too late for them. They can't sustain for 80 minutes. They struggle to score points, not just league points, but score points in the last 20 minutes. So I'm not sure there's a fitness issue there. It's a lack of cavalry off the bench. They'll go back to the drawing board. The Beasties, though, they're marching and they're looking hard to stop, Will.
Certainly are. The Western Sydney Two Blues 21, Eastwood 26. It was a great contest. You wouldn't enjoy playing either of these two sides. They are so physical, so committed. A few major takeaways. Eastwood would play for 160 minutes if they had to secure a win. Will Goddard remains a scrum monster, and the flow on Oscar Lane for the Two Blues is unrivaled. I think we have a new Shute Shield's best head of hair. It is a delightful salad. The 21-year-old former Aussie schoolboys flanker from the Gold Coast is hopefully here to stay for the Two Blues. Eastwood's set piece was great early. Xavier Degai scored twice to help put them up 12-0 after 16 minutes. The Two Blues scored off the kickoff with some alert work from Brad Koeman, odd misread from Eastwood. All of a sudden it's 7-12 and Eastwood kick their restart out on the full. So game on, and it deteriorated a little bit over the next 15 minutes. But the physicality and contest lifted. It was fun. Goddard continued to wreak havoc at scrum time, and Eastwood dominated the breakdown. Two Blues build and hung in from there. Isaac Tetamaki was trying to lift them, but they're just missing. That's something that rhymes with Todd Boner. If they can hang in there and fight until he comes back from international duty. They're a threat, but they have East this weekend, and it's a tough picture for the Two Blues. Brad Henderson was awesome off the bench in the second half. Two Blues were up 21-12 after he scored in the 53rd minute, but Eastwood, a very, very important win. They never stopped pushing the forwards, bash away, showed great strength in the carry. Opatai scored the winner in the 73rd minute. Bit of breathing space for them now to make finals likely rather than just a probability, a 5-point win, for Eastwood. And then West Harbour, Coolo, 33, Northern Suburbs, 28, one of the upsets of the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, having lost to West at Concord Oval, it's a hard place to win. And I think everyone knew this game was going to be a real banana peel game for Northern Suburbs, focusing on the rest of the season and looking at the job at hand. The round 3 victory they won at 28-17 at North Sydney Oval, that game could have gone either way. Callum Circus scored a couple of tries, which probably was the difference. Huge inclusions with Jack Debrasini and Pete Samu. And you can kind of see the confidence, professionalism that's kind of added, and everyone's kind of lifted around them. I'm not taking anything away from the West Harbour core group who have been brilliant all season. I think West got the scoring quite early on. They look confident, which is the last thing you want to do at West Harbour is give them early points. They were really willing to work for each other. I think probably for me, the game was kind of manifested in the 16th minute. Kieran Curran scampered away. He was in for all money. And then Eamon McCall, the outside centre, was a Scott Sattler kind of tackle, like bootlaces, 5 metres out. He was in for all money. And then Drew Sellers, the smallest player on the field, the halfback, gets over and makes this like brilliant David Pocock style turnover. Like that's what you want. You want your halfbacks doing that. You want your outside centre making plays like that. It was all nullified though because of the line out and overthrow. And Seamus Smith scampered away and scored under the sticks. But the effort was there, and you could see that from the West Harbour side. Like it was really, really evident. I think a try, then an Alcock, and then a yellow card to Tom Everett for a high shot. North were down on man. They went down into the half, 14-7 down, and you could see they were in their shell. They weren't confident. They weren't getting the rub of the green from referee John McCarthy. You could see there was frustration there. Callum Seger came out, brilliant individual play, 50-metre try, 14 all. And then with an advantage in 51st minute, Jack Debrasini, little chip and chase over the top. I've seen some footage. It looks like he bounced the ball basketball style. But it was really hard for referee John McCarthy to kind of see behind the post. But that summed up North Harbour's day. It wasn't really going to be their game. North then scored with a try from Margan, 21 apiece, 25 to go. A crucial try there from Bennett. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I love the battle, between Tangi Fumaona and Pete Samu. That was a real highlight for me. Like watching those two go toe to toe, the young buck and the old bull. That's what I love about the Shute Shield. Like Tangi Fumaona is a rugby league player in his background. He's young, he's up and coming. And just seeing him and Pete Samu go toe to toe. A couple of massive shots. There was necks. There was headlocks in mauls. It was just brilliant. Massive win, West Harbour, I think, for them and their club. I loved that after the game and after the win, like the whole team was embracing Pete Samu and they were all about that. And you could see what it meant to him and to the rest of the team. And talking to Coach Ben Rutherford, he talked about it's great to have 2 back-to-back wins, and Pete Samu and Jack Debrasini have done a great job just raising the standards a bit. But this side's been knocking on the door a lot this season. They've stayed in the fight. They've been contesting every single game. I know they're at the bottom of the ladder next to Souths, but I think you need to differentiate between the two because West Harbour have competed every single game, even for 60, 70 minutes when they haven't won. It's a testament to the side of the program. I think they're up and coming. They're going to knock a lot more sides off like that next year. It's great to have a strong West Harbour side. We need West Harbour to be strong. So it's amazing what Ben Rutherford's doing in that program. It's great seeing the big players come back, the Pete Samus, and the Jack Debrasinis. But the Aidan Wearns, those guys are doing a wonderful job as well. The Aaron McCoolers as well. Hannafords as well. There's a lot of players contributing to that program. Cam Orr, Beetham. There's loads of players that are contributing to that program. So a shout out to West Harbour. I think they're doing a fantastic job over there at Concord Oval.
Here. Hunter Wildfires 31, 43 to Randwick. A heavy 8 at Newcastle. Randwick are the most fascinating side from here, aren't they, in terms of what they can produce, because the cavalry's coming back and is back. Their start and first try draws an audible exclamation when you're watching it. It's the sort of play you sit there and just gasp with incredulity. Also, the refs' marks have been a bit all over the place at times lately, but Matt Callaghan was as clear as you like with an elite scrum call. So great to have that back too. Hunter continued to do so much right, so physical in attack and defence, set piece fights and muscles up so well. John Morris loves it. Hunter did a good job turning it into a genuine scrap and tussle after Randwick started well. It was 17 all at the break. Logan Love darted through near the post to score first in the second half. Max Moore was in the sin bin for Randwick. Hendren hit back to help make it 24 apiece, and Nitty Finau off a maul try gave Randwick the edge as Hunter almost got lost a touch in the chip and physicality, perhaps. Ahead of this one, there was a feeling Hunter might have the edge just for continuity, and then we saw the bench that Randwick was trotting out on Saturday, and it swung a bit the way of the Wicks on paper, and it translated. Poitevin scored a try off the bench, was big down the stretch. Declini added great punch, and the reserve front row scrummaged dominantly. Tim Sipple was terrific. Hendren had his way with some tired defence, and Randwick secured a big, big win for the context of their season and set up things beautifully heading in to round 15. But Coolo, we take a slightly different turn this week on the shootout, because our next guest coming up is a legend of the game in Australia. I'm very pleased to say we are joined by Narrabeen Tigers Junior, Sydney University premiership winner, multiple grand finals, and now Rugby Australia CEO as well. Phil Waugh joins us. Phil, hello, how are you?
G'day, guys. I'm very well, thank you.
Appreciate your time. How have you been enjoying the past couple of months for the game in Australia? There's been so much going on, but how are you feeling about it right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's good energy amongst the rugby community and probably the broader community at large. So, we've been spending a lot of time around connection and connecting into the local communities. And, I think that's been reflected in the attendances that we've had at the first 3 test matches, which have been sold out, which is an amazing outcome for Australian rugby. And it's been pleasing to see that movement getting behind the teams in gold.
On the Shute Shield, you're a premiership winner with Sydney University. Loved your time with them. They've got you down for 7 grand final appearances. When you think of that time playing with Sydney Uni in the Shute Shield, what comes to mind immediately?
Oh, I mean, that was some of my fondest memories of playing rugby was playing in the Shute Shield, and the level of competitiveness. When we were sort of all in there playing against each other and with each other. In the back end after Super Rugby, it was very enjoyable, and it's still. It probably predates me playing in the Shute Shield to ball boying as a young junior for Warringah, and in a lot of ways that's where my education started, was on the sidelines of Shute Shield and lower grades. So it's very close to my heart, and in a lot of ways it's sort of the beating heart of the game. So it's pretty passionate area of mine.
I've seen you with a whistle in hand down at Tunks Park at North Pirates Oval. So, it's great to have you back in the game. We're thrilled that you're here. I think something I've heard anecdotally from you in the past is we know you're a Warringah Rats junior. I've got some old Gordon jerseys in the background. Like you, I ran across to Sydney University and to a co-ed college, on the other side of the bridge in a good part of town. I guess one thing you didn't get to play in was the Battle of the Beaches. It's something that you've talked about as being something you would have loved to have done. What makes that rivalry so special, and why is that something that a game that you missed out on, that if you had your time again, you would have loved to strap the boots on and have a go in it?
Yeah, well, firstly on the refereeing, I was refereeing under sevens the other day, and I was getting some sledging from the sideline. It was Angus Gardner giving me some feedback, and so that was always good to get feedback off one of the world's best referees. But the Battle of the Beaches. I grew up, Warringah. When you grow up in Warringah and following Warringah and supporting Warringah passionately, you also have a very deep passion of dislike for Manly, and so it was just one of those clashes. I think club rugby is built on tribalism, and clearly the tribalism which has been created in Warringah and the tribalism which has been created in Manly means for a very very strong competition when it comes to the Battle of the Beaches. So you look at the crowds, you look at Rat Park when that game's on, you look at Manly Oval when that game's on, and the Anzac Day clash. So look, I just think it's a great rivalry. There's so many great rivalries across rugby, not just here in Sydney or Australia, but right around the world. And certainly, I do think the Battle of the Beaches is right up there in terms of two local communities battling it out on the field, but then everything around the game and the kids running around, the spectators having beers and sausage sandwiches in the stands. It's just an awesome environment to be in. So something. Unfortunately, at 46 now, I'm pretty sure I won't be playing in one, but I look forward to watching many more.
Never say never. We call the unofficial KPI metric of the health of club rugby is how many kids are on the field at half time. And, you've been in a few Rats games lately. You've been on the hill there having a beer. They're at the top of the table. Good to see your old club going well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and it's not just. I mean, we talk a lot about Shute Shield and just being around first grade. You look through the real strength of club rugby is through seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths. First colts, seconds colts, thirds colts, women's. So it's not just about first grade, but as you say, the beauty of club rugby, kids on the field. And then the ground announcer's got to come on their loudspeaker to get the kids off the field because the players have run onto the field. So I do love that element, and the kids love that, and that's what makes it real. That's what makes it authentic, and I think we've got to make sure that we preserve that because that's the beauty of it.
We've got some great characters in the competition at the moment through the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield, and it's famous for that throughout its glittering history. When you think of some of the characters you played with or against, what are some of the moments, perhaps just on a normal day, every now and then when you're glancing off into the distance, they just make you chuckle?
Well, I mean, ball boying for that Warringah team at the back end of the 90s, back end of the 80s and early 90s. I mean, there's some pretty special characters through that group with your Steve Libreys and your Rick Blacks and your Lance Walkers and your Steve Temple, Gaberinas, Robbie Walton. I could pretty much name 1 to 15 of that Warringah team that went through and went to so many grand finals. So I look back and some of the entertainment that they provided physically through that period was quite a good education of what not to do. And then obviously made my first grade debut actually against Warringah for Sydney Uni at Rat Park in 1999, which was an experience. But some of the. I mean, I remember playing Peter Kay. I mean, Peter Kay was playing for BK, and so and quite an intimidating character. And as a young 19-year-old, it was quite an experience. But then you played all the way through against some of the best players, not just in the country but in the world through that period. So played with some, played against some. Played against the only Cheika in '99 was still at Randwick, and so a lot of Willie Ofahengaue was playing for Manly. So it was a great way to learn your craft as a young kid, trying to mix it with some people who've done the lot.
I think something as well, Warrie, which we touched upon with John Manenti, and you've touched upon the importance of the women's program, the Colties as well. I had a great time coaching uni Colts for many years. It's also a breeding ground for coaches. And we've seen some wonderful coaches in the game thrive, in the Shute Shield. And it's something that's so important is that pathway, not for players, but for coaches as well. It'd be good to touch upon, some of the coaches that we're seeing in the competition and, also from your perspective, some of the great coaches that you had, when you were playing at university and at Warringah.
Yeah, I mean, one of our focuses is investing in match officials and coaching. I think that it's underestimated the impact of a good coach on the enjoyment that athletes have when they play rugby when they've got a very strong coach. So I think it's an area of investment from a Rugby Australia perspective, but certainly through the member unions and then through the clubs that we need to continue to invest in. And as you say, some great coaches and largely. Clubs are built on those characters and the culture that those coaches create. So it's really important to ensure that we got the right people with the right values coaching our young girls and boys. And I was very fortunate. Also, and Eddie was my first grade coach with Ross Reynolds through that early period, and then had multiple coaches through that Sydney Uni period who went on and coached Super Rugby. So. I think that it's a great pathway. We know that there's a lot of good people involved in coaching the game, and it gets more and more specialised, as we know, with forwards coaches, backs coaches, head coaches, director of rugbies, and so there's certainly more and more people involved. That being said, it's still very much the same game, and so it's good to see some young coaches coming through the system.
On those pathways, where do you think the Shute Shield and the flow-on grades and competitions sit within the pathway system for rugby at the moment, with Super Rugby AU following, but we've got players like Pete Samuel at the moment trying to push for a Wallabies recall in the competition. The NPC has drained a bit of talent and players going overseas and coming back. Where do you see the competition within the landscape in Australian rugby?
Yeah, look, I think it's a live conversation. I think that with the Super Rugby, we're probably conscious of Super Rugby is not where we'd like it to be, but we still think it's certainly a very strong proposition. And when we talk about connection and sort of one team from club to country, it's just ensuring that we're connecting Super Rugby into club rugby, and there's a real sense of ownership from clubs of Super Rugby and their players out of club playing and representing their club in the Super Rugby team. So there's a big connection piece there. The club rugby, as I said, it's not just about first grade. It's sort of around the lower grades and into colts, and ensuring that it's a broader community aspect to it. And then, having experienced it myself, when the best players are playing in the Shute Shield, it's up there with some of the finest competitions at that level around the world. So I think that there's a conversation. I mean, one of the challenges we know is the global season, the global calendar. How do we ensure that we've got the player welfare coordinated, equally making sure we've got our players playing enough rugby. So we're working through at the moment around just the broader landscape and different competitions to ensure that we're utilising what's a great competition and a great sort of lineup of competitions to get the best out of our players.
What's your message to the Australian rugby community through that grassroots model? Obviously, we focus a lot on the Shute Shield and the competitions associated with it, but with the eyes of the world on Sydney, Victoria, Queensland, all of Australia next year, and then again in 2029. What's your message to the clubs and the volunteers and all of the players out there who are tuning in?
Well, I mean, ultimately, all the community own rugby in the country. So, we obviously at Rugby Australia, we're fortunate enough and very privileged to be leading the game at Rugby Australia. But ultimately, all the work and all the ownership sits in the community, in the clubs, in your community clubs, and I'm very passionate about that. And we'll certainly try and do what we can to strengthen the game around the country. And the game's only strengthened really for those that are on the ground, doing all the volunteering, doing all the contributing to the local community clubs, and ultimately that's the strength. And so, we're very cognizant of that. The connection, which I think that we've done a reasonable job over the last period of time, but we know that there's still a big enough gap that we need to close in terms of bringing the community game closer to the professional game, and we're on that journey, but we're very conscious that the beating heart of the game is in the communities, and it always will be, and it always should be.
Phil, we really appreciate your time. Congrats on what you're doing with the game. Good luck for the next little while, and we'll look forward to seeing you on a hill or in the stands at a Shute Shield game very soon.
I'm always there, so I look forward to it.
Our match of the round in round 15 of the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield is Northern Suburbs hosting Gordon, the Baxter-Mortlock Cup and the Battle of the North, Saturday afternoon on 9gem and 9Now at North Sydney Oval. And I'm very pleased to say we are joined by Northern Suburbs scrum half Michael McDonald. Michael, hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, lads. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Great to have you join us and give us a bit of an insight into Northern Suburbs season. It's been an interesting campaign, and naturally they've been thrilled to have your services when they've had that opportunity. But how would you assess where the squad is at with finals still very much in play?
Yeah, I think we've probably lost a few more than obviously we would have liked. With a lot of them, we felt like we were probably within a chance or had chances to win those games, a lot of them. But I think we're in a pretty good spot. I mean, the squad, we've got some really good depth, especially in our pack. And I think we're starting to play some good rugby. I think our defence has been probably one of the integral parts of our game the last couple of weeks, which you probably would have seen against Sydney Uni. And I think we just need to probably just get a few things more to stick and attack, and I think we'll be in a pretty good spot.
With some of those changes, a lot of the faces who we've seen come back in are Northern Suburbs favourites. They've been around the North setup for a while, but those combinations with a few of the newer players who are coming through and emerging, what's that been like for the squad and for you to make sure that you can steer everyone around. Max Bury's been in and out. The forward pack's been changing, but from an outside backs perspective, it's pretty consistent. How much work goes into that, and how confident are you those connections are really going to click for Norths over the next month and hopefully for Norths 7 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, everyone who comes in, whether it be Max or anyone else, everyone's pretty smart and has got a pretty good rugby IQ, I suppose. So I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of things that need to be ironed out when it comes into when you're talking about combinations. I feel like everyone can come into the team and add value uh, in whatever way that may be. But I think anyone who comes in uh, typically always adds something, and that's quite personal to them. It's quite different between every individual who comes in.
I think you touched upon that round 11 win versus Sydney University, 41-30, delayed game because of the Wallabies open training session. The rain was coming down. Shane Wilcox with a great try. That was one of those games, that I sat there and got massive FOMO because it was just a huge win. You could almost be like, I love to be a fly on the wall in that change room after the game. Tell us a little bit about that win and what that meant as well. Like Max Bury running straight on top of Ollie Schmood. Like, that was an all-time win. Tell us a little bit about that game on the Saturday night and celebrations afterwards.
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't involved in that one. I was away that weekend. I wasn't here that weekend. But I mean, I feel like that was one of the times it's properly clicked. And I think that's probably just given everyone evidence that what we are doing is good and what we are doing at training is pointing us in the right direction.
Completely. Like, I mean, on your day, you can beat anyone, right? I mean, that's the confidence that Beery has in their side. You can go toe to toe with the best. I guess like it's a must win performance this weekend versus Gordon, a local derby game. Is it extra pressure knowing that going to the finals you probably have to win this one, or it'll make it a little bit easier, not have to rely on other results?
I don't know if it's so much pressure. I think everyone knows that regardless of the ladder, this weekend and this occasion alone is a pretty big weekend for Norths and for Gordon, obviously being rivals, especially that we've got our Legends Day at the club. So I think that occasion alone, everyone knows how important that is.
You talk about the occasion this Saturday, North with their Legends Day. You're wearing a special jersey and they're going to be auctioned off after the game. Kulo touched on Zach Beer. What's it been like moving to North after time with Randwick and being a part of that club? And I mean, we know there are some great characters within that side. And can you take us into some of the characters who have really stood out for you within that North's lineup?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good example of the product that Shute Shield can be. Like you look at Brady Dawson, he's my age. He's 20, I think he's turning 27 this year. But probably a bloke who started, played Colts here, played second grade, has played first grade the last few years. And now since he's coming into the Waratahs setup this last year, he's probably really come on leaps and bounds. And obviously like Zach and the club got him to a stage where he was able to get in there and be recognised. But like the season he's had has been really impactful, especially for our team. And he's just like a perfect example of what the Shute Shield can do for players, I suppose, who play week in, week out rugby.
He's a no-nonsense character from what we've seen. Every time he used to come off the bench, the whole vibe of the game would just change and a fatigued opposition front row would just be petrified by the look of it. We were marvelling earlier in the year at his power stance in the front row too. Have you seen a young man with maybe just such physical presence?
Yeah, I mean, he's a big body. And he even says himself he's proper fooled out the last year. I think he's put on like 10 kilos, but that's probably also what's made him so impactful is he's got a bit more weight behind him. He's now at a stage where he's really fit and powerful at that weight. But most importantly, he's like just a genuinely really good rugby player. He's smart. He's pretty calm, and he's just like goes about his work.
I coached Jamie Clark at Sydney University. He's affectionately known as the Polar Bear. He's obviously signed a contract with Newcastle over there, extension as well, and he's really grown himself since coming across from Sydney University as well. You've had a bit of cavalry come back. What's it been like having some of these big players, in the case of Jamie Clark, a big personality, coming back into the Northern Suburbs side and training on a wet Tuesday night? It certainly adds a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it raises competitiveness between the whole squad, I suppose. And now you got like our front row's pretty elite, and you got like 6 or 7 blokes who are genuinely competing to start, and all who've been really performed really well and have a massive impact on our squad.
Michael, we appreciate your time. Can't wait to watch you this weekend against Gordon. We're loving what Norths have been doing and building, we hope, towards a big finale in 2026. And of course, you driving them around the park at North Sydney Oval this weekend and beyond. Good luck against Gordon.
No worries. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Round 15 of the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield is upon us, as we've just heard from Michael McDonald. The match of the round is Northern Suburbs hosting Gordon at North Sydney Oval. The Baxter-Mortlock Cup, Tom Coolican, the Battle of the North. It is a huge occasion for Northern Suburbs. They need a win against a very, very tricky Gordon side.
Oh, completely. It's 3v7. Northern Suburbs fighting for their life in this competition. They've got a tough run home. 100 Wildfires away, which is never easy. Manly, they've got a home, and then they've got Souths away. And look, there's no easy wins in the Shute Shield. We know that. But I think focusing on the task at hand for North this week, they're up against it. Tough loss last week versus West Harbour, 33-28. I think that scoreline kind of flatters them a little bit. They didn't have a lot of luck, a lot of rub with the green, with a few refereeing calls. But nevertheless, it's not the kind of momentum you want going into a big game like this. Gordon was resoundingly beaten by Sydney University. It's back to the drawing board for them. A few key changes. For North, Sifra Amoni coming in at tight prop. It's a big in. Michael Scott moves to the bench. Sam Shepherd is out with Boston Karapa starting back in the second row. A bit more of a dynamic type 5, which Coach Beer is looking for. Benji Hopper's out. Luke Gurgakowski comes back in. Skipper in the side 2 at number 8. That's a massive in. Seb Cameron's out with Liam Dennell coming in on the wing. Look, we know what Max Bury has this side. He's worth 20 or 30 points. Rory McIntosh is doing a wonderful job, though. He's steering the team around the park, controlling game and tempo really, really well. For me, it's about the North Suburbs set piece and the line out. We know the Gordon set piece have struggled this season, particularly the line out. Saketi Tarval coming in, replacing Jaden Henderson has done a great job, but they lost 4 lineouts last week inside the 22 in the last 30 minutes of the game. Doing that against good sides, you just can't afford to do it. North will look to make page of that error. Jack Margin comes in for Presley Tafunga. That's a massive out from a set piece perspective. Tom Horan comes in for Hugh Margin. That's a massive in. They missed Tom Horan's just pestering nature of the breakdown last week. I think that's where University created their ascendancy and dominance. It was in the type 5 and the breakdown, the ability to generate quick ball. The Gordon back row probably needs to be better. I think they got out-muscled last week. They'll be up for the challenge this week. You don't need to fire them up. It's a massive local derby game. And Pollock is out with Gerald Bacon coming in at outside centre. I thought Pollock looked a little bit kind of ginger after an early try. He wasn't in full stride. Look, I think North have to win this game, be highly emotional, but if Gordon just do their job, do the simple things right, and are able to execute their line out, they should win this game reasonably comfortably, 15 points or so. But it's an emotional game. Blair Tungy Fulmona, who's been absolutely brilliant for them, in that back row. He's got a massive task up against Tom Horan. That'll be a huge battle. I think Gordon will be too good, but it'll be a tight one, Will.
Looking forward to it, and a reminder too about those special jerseys Norths are wearing. They're going to be auctioned off in the Molly Dive stand after full time. So if you are at North Sydney Oval, make sure you stick around. Manly versus Hunter Wildfires, 9v10. Both are still in it. One will be done after this though. So win to keep your finals hopes alive, lose, and it's pretty much over. Dally Bird back in to start at 6 for Manly. Jordan Holgate from South Africa via some very strong experience over in the UK, and Simon Kennewell into the centres. House starts at hooker for Hunter. Olajua Noah is in for Micah Ashgillard. after his blue card. So a terrific in for Hunter, albeit at the expense of one of the premier second rowers in the competition. Hunter's form's been really good without the wins. Manly's halves pairing, if they can get on a roll, certainly can change the trajectory of any clash. So on a dry day out at Manly Oval, another opportunity to get out and enjoy what is one of the great venues in Sydney club sport. A bit of a toss of the coin, and it comes down to who wants it more, and we can't wait to see that one, Manly versus Hunter. Hunter, of course, making the drive down. So, cool. Uni versus Souths. The tough season for Souths continues, but Uni, these are the ones they need to win and win well.
Yeah, completely. 4v12. I think round two, and these two sides face up against each other. It was 28-31, and Souths had an opportunity, on the bell to draw it. Missing a kick there, but they were up by 14 points with about sort of 30 to go. It was a really tight fixture, that one. And John Manetti commented on the show last week that it was sort of a reflection of how tight the competition is. Given that how close that result was. Look, South will be looking to next season. They're winless this year. I can't imagine it's a great and invigorating training session. I don't imagine they're a whole lot of contact on a Tuesday night, but look, there's a few changes for them. Adam Markley's in for Oscar Frean at tight head prop. And Dave Nicol has been ruled out with Josh Tudor coming in. And then Isaac Nipkins comes in at fullback as well. Good to have the skipper back this week, which is a massive, massive in. That will make it, somewhat of a difference. But, South will be looking to next year. Their Colts program is in a great shape at the moment, so they're pretty excited about that. For the university side, Darcy Breen is out at tight head prop. Edward Millar comes in. I coached Eddie at Colts. I just sent him a message saying congrats on the first great start. And the last message I sent him was congrats on the first Colts debut back in July in 2024. Eddie, lives out at Liverpool, commutes into Botany. He's out of bed at 2:33 a.m. in the morning, into work at 5, and then is, training at university, till 9 p.m. at night. He's one of the all-time stalwarts. So for him to have his first grade debut with Ofahengaue, Wallaby, who's a mentor to him at hooker, and then Matt Field Wallaby behind him, that's really special. That's what makes the Shute Shield such a great competition, right? Ronan Lay is out, and Tom Morris has moved to wing with James McGregor back there as well. I think that's a good positional play with Morrison. Quite a little bit out of place for Lockie Albert last week against Gordon, so I think Wing is probably his preferred position there, and McGregor's been outstanding since John Manetti brought him across. I think University will be too good. They want the 5 points. Tough run home for them. They play East, they play Warringah. They'll have to get it done versus South to get the 5 points, but they will be looking at other fixtures this season, but they're on a roll, Will.
The Two Blues versus East, it's 8th versus 1st, and it's a settled Two Blues lineup. There's a change at fullback with Abel Mangalogo coming in. Hugo Patterson starts at hooker, and Nick Cross start in the second row for Eastern Suburbs. Isley starts at 7, Hokofono back at 8, George Gibson to 6, and Kemo Valentini starts at 10 again for East. No Jack Bowen. Chris Bell at fullback. So good run for some of these Eastern Suburbs players heading into the finals and the shape, and just making sure they've got all of their options covered. And look, they can afford to drop a game at the moment, Eastern Suburbs. With Ben Batcher and that coaching staff, they won't want to, and they are in brilliant form, Eastern Suburbs, and that class that they continue to roll through. They're not missing much at all with players like the ones we've just mentioned. So the Two Blues, always a tough task at Eric Tweedale. Haven't had the results they've wanted of late. They are still missing Rod Yona, so East going heavy favourites, but will be an interesting clash out there. Rats versus Eastwood Cooler. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, 2v5. The Rats came off a win versus Southern District, a dominant win, which would be expected, given it was 2v the wooden spoon. A gutsy win from Eastwood versus the Two Blues last week, 26-21. An unchanged Eastwood side, which is brilliant there for Coach Anthony Griffin. It's what you want this time of the season. But we've touched upon this many times. In the show, it's just not sustainable having your tight 5 and your forward pack playing 80 minutes week in, week out. And we've seen that toll in the Eastwood side, particularly versus Northern Suburbs, a couple of weeks ago, where they just ran out of gas. It's not just the ability to close that game, it's the ability to back up. It's what training you can do on a Monday or a Tuesday, how you can, do your mauls and your full contact sessions as well. So, that's been a challenge for them. a lot of changes in this Warringah side. Ivan Fepalui's out, Sateki Latu's starting, Putgita's out with Sam Thompson coming in, Josh Redder's out with Zach Barnabas coming back in, Zardiz is out with Byron Smith back in. That's a massive in. The missing linchpin for me has been that 10 position. Since Byron Smith stopped sort of playing, we've just seen that Warringah attack grind to a halt. They haven't been playing flat, fast, direct. It's been a lot of standoff, Northern Hemisphere style rugby, which would make sense, given the talent heritage of Zardiz. But I think that's a massive, massive in for the Rats. And Crichton's out with Tom Jarrett coming in, in the winger position. So left is his move to outside centre. It's a tricky kind of mindset here for the Warringah side. They've got University at home next week, but Sydney Uni are on a roll, on a run. They've got cavalry coming back. They've got big players coming back at the right part of the season. Warringah are a side that, you don't want to suggest they may have peaked too early, but they've lost some key players. They lost Jackson Rapata, who's, a real massive kind of out for them. They've lost that punch, in that midfield. He's been a massive loss. And Byron Smith's great that he's back in, but they haven't had the combinations, the cohesion, the connection that you need. So I think they'll just take the win here. They'll just want to grind a win out. This is where you need Ben Maher to step up. This is where you want your older veteran players, your skippers, to really just like make the most of the opportunity. Same thing they did with Two Blues, mid-season. It's like, let's like make the most of the opportunities early on, create some scoreboard gaps, some scoreboard pressure on the opposition side, and make them chase us. That's what they did. They'll need to do that again. And then the front run needs to execute. The set piece needs to execute. But look, this Eastwood side, I think if they can keep with Warringah for the first 40, 50 minutes, that'll be expected. Then I think Warringah will kick away. But if the Rats score, a few early tries through the likes of their outside backs and they're able to grind out, a bit of 14 points sort of score gap, it'll get ugly. I think Eastwood here probably don't have the cavalry coming back and, they're losing players at the wrong time of the season. So I think Warringah will be too good.
West Harbour hosting Randwick. Colin McCann to referee at Concord Oval. West Harbour have their lunch the day before this one. Still tickets available. If you're watching this in time, get out and enjoy that one too. But fascinating clash. The Pirates have been immense lately. They're chasing their third successive victory, and they are also unchanged. They've been playing terrific rugby. They've been great up forwards all year. Hannaford's been terrific. And then the inclusions of Jack Debrasini and Pete Samu in the past little while have really just helped them lift, and they are going beautifully, West Harbour, at the moment. So fascinating clash. It's one Randwick really needs to win. 6th place Randwick on the ladder. They've got some good momentum. That win against Hunter was great. West Harbour in 11th, looking to chase just more good form and plenty to celebrate heading in towards the back end of the season. Huge changes for Randwick. Andrew Kellaway starts at fullback. That's massive for them and great for the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield to see Andrew Kellaway back in the competition after a very long absence playing overseas and at Super Rugby and Super Rugby Pacific level. Christian Poitevin starts at 6, I think. So too does Deck Leaney. He starts in the front row. Matt Bursey starts at 7. James Hendren stays at 10. The Chan brothers at 12 and 13. So it's a really interesting clash. Randwick is building. West Harbour been terrific. Can't wait to see this one at Concord Oval on Saturday. And coolo, that does us for Round 15's previews and another episode of The Shootout, and it's been a big one. Rugby Australia's CEO and Sydney University legend Phil Waugh, Michael McDonald, Northern Suburbs scrum half, ahead of the Battle of the North. We are set for a massive final month of the competition.
Absolutely. Busiest end of the season, 3 rounds to go, and it's finals. We're on the other side of the hump, as they say. The days are getting longer, the sun's shining. It's getting exciting out there as well. The Wallabies are out and about, and it's great having the Super Rugby players back. That's been the most exciting part for me, has been, the elevation and the quality of rugby on a Saturday. It's been brilliant to watch.
Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll keep dishing up everything we can for you in the Blue Crane Capital Shute Shield, and enjoy this weekend's fixtures.